I'd say broadly speaking, there's two main types of horror movies, and there's two kind of spins that can be put on the main types of horror movies. Now, horror goes back before H.P. Lovecraft, but at the same, I think H.P. Lovecraft can correctly be called the father of modern horror. I mean, you have your Draculas, you have your Camillas, you have Frankenstein and the Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But I'd argue a lot of that is kind of gothic romance or kind of adventure, more so than what we commonly know as horror today. It was kind of more romantic literature. And, well, I guess you could say in a lot of ways horror is kind of a subsection of romantic literature. I think there are some enough differences to kind of say it's different. So either directly or indirectly, or even if it wasn't direct or indirect, he kind of embodies the concept of modern horror. We have to talk about H.P. Lovecraft briefly. Now, for those of you who don't know, H.P. Lovecraft is the one who came up with the Cthulhu mythos, Yog-Shoggoth, the great race of Yith, Cthulhu, obviously, Azazoth, all these various fantastical demons and creatures. And H.P. Lovecraft's approach to horror was that humans occupy a very small, irrelevant place in the cosmos. That despite kind of the way we like to think of ourselves as being unique, we like to think of ourselves as Thomas Aquinas would say, possessing rational souls. We like to think of ourselves as being unique in our capacity for reason, our capacity for science, that we are masters of our world. So these are all kind of assumptions that we make about ourselves. Whether or not they're true isn't really relevant for the sake of what I'm talking about. So, Lovecraft kind of took this and he kind of put it on its head and said, not only are humans not important, not only are humans insignificant, but they're completely powerless. The universe is full of these beings of immense power, these primal forces of nature that not only can we not understand, but they're so horrifying they drive us insane. And that our insanity and our lifetime and our existence can only come about through ignorance of the fundamental kind of forces of the universe. And in this we can kind of see, even though he was anti-Christian, kind of a Christian perspective on it. All the horrors entered the world through the disobedience of Adam and Eve. Things were perfect, things were happy, things were peaceful, and in disobeying God and eating the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, and kind of, I think ultimately you have them seeking knowledge, but it's at the same time it's kind of interesting because I've heard spins on it that the fruit did not give knowledge of good and evil. The sin, they already knew good and evil. It was that the serpent basically said, I can make you like God. And they believed the serpent's lies. And because of kind of their delusion that they could fully be like God, they ate the fruit, and that was kind of their blasphemy. So what I'm trying to say is there's this idea in H.P. Lovecraft that there has to be an original sin. That there's these cosmic beings of immense power, but what happens is you reach out to them. Generally speaking, you have people who will perform rituals. They'll offer their souls to Yog-Shoggoth. They'll join a cult to Nycanthotep, or one of the other great old ones. And they'll serve them. They'll offer human sacrifices, etc. And in doing so, by reaching out to these beings of immense power, the beings become aware of you. And if they don't immediately destroy your mind by comprehending them, they'll slowly destroy you. They'll devour you. They'll use you as a conduit to enter the world. But generally speaking, these beings are indifferent to humanity as long as humanity does not actively seek them out. So long as humanity does not commit an original sin, the gods don't come out and punish them. So then there's kind of another perspective that kind of takes Lovecraft to his logical conclusion, and it removes the aspect of original sin. It says not only is there this hopeless universe, not only is man insignificant, but the fallout of kind of these titanic forces frequently does hit humans. Humans aren't safe in their ignorance. The world is kind of arbitrary and full of evil, and eventually it's going to hit you. And then kind of within these two perspectives, we have, I suppose, two spins you can put on it. The less common one in horror is redemption. This was in As Above, So Below. This was in Lights Out, and this was in a couple other horror movies. Basically, the original sin is committed, and they kind of go through a purification process. They go through kind of a reforging. I guess Deliverance is another example of this. And they kind of redeem themselves, and they lose whatever the sin, whatever the weakness was that made them fall in the first place, made them commit the sin, and they can achieve redemption. And then the other one is kind of like your Friday the 13th style, where all sins cannot be forgiven, the universe punishes them. Because Jason kind of has a puritanical streak. He mainly kills people who are having premarital sex, if you actually look at it. So he kind of has this puritanical thing that he's punishing sin, and there's no opportunity for redemption. In a lot of horror movies, the characters die even if they realize their mistake. I tend to prefer the former, but I digress. So I just kind of wanted, because it is Halloween, and I think it is important to kind of understanding this movie, to just kind of go over that. So let's get into Rosemary's Baby. So this is widely considered, not just by me, but by pretty much everyone, to be one of the greatest horror movies of all time. And for good reason. It's Roman Polanski at his finest. So how does this kind of fit in with my narrative? We'll just start going through the story, and we'll explain to you. So the film begins in 1965 with our main character, Rosemary, as the wiki describes, a bright but somewhat naive young housewife, and her husband, Guy. I always hated people who were named Guy. It's just kind of confusing. Who's a struggling actor. So they move into an opulent, antiquated apartment building in New York City that happens to have very low rent for some reason. Their residence was previously occupied by Mrs. Gardenia, who was an old elderly woman who had gone senile. Their friend, who was their former landlord, Hutch, tries to dissuade them from taking the apartment. He tells them that a bunch of bad things happened in the apartment building. Children getting sacrificed, some kind of stuff about satanic activity, just some really kind of shady stuff went down there. And he's like, you guys just don't want to get involved with it. I know it's a good deal, but you should really turn back now. No, I don't think this really qualifies as an original sin, because it's just a rumor. It's not them actively seeking out anything. But it is, you're kind of starting to get kind of hints as to what's going to happen. This would be a really good movie to watch just cold, if you know what I mean. Like, you don't know what Rosemary's Baby is. You don't know it's a horror movie. You don't know anything about it. And just kind of, I think it would be more effective, because the menace really slowly builds throughout this movie. So, Rosemary meets a young woman who's a recovering drug addict, who's living with an elderly couple in the building, who are kind of these eccentric old people across the hall. Rosemary admires a pendant necklace that the former drug addict is wearing, but it has a very strange smell. Returning home one night, Guy and Rosemary find that the drug addict woman has thrown herself to her death outside of the window of an old elder couple across the hallway. So kind of while all this is happening, Guy and Rosemary really want to have 3 children, So they're taking every opportunity they can to try to conceive. And at this point, the movie's very happy. You have this young couple, they're in love, they're trying to start a family. The husband's gradually getting his career together. There's news that his career's going good. Unfortunately, the actor in a major play that he was an understudy for went spontaneously blind. And yeah, so he went blind. The husband gets the role, and his career is just kind of going along. So they meet the couple across the hallway, and Rosemary briefly in passing mentions that she was raised Catholic but is now agnostic. And the couple disparage organized religion and state that Catholicism is evil. If you're watching a horror movie and someone attacks Catholicism, that's probably a bad sign. Before he just completely abandoned everything he believed in, Michael Corrin once said, in a movie, whenever they really need to fight evil, they always call in a priest. If you need someone to fight demons, you need someone to fight the devil, you bring in a priest to do it. You don't bring in some, generally a fairly masculine priest too, like the guy from The Exorcist. So they start talking to the old couple. The old couple doesn't really seem to care that the drug addict lady had killed herself. If anything, it seems it was kind of a setup, or very convenient that the woman killed herself and Rosemary and her husband go over. So they find the couple to be very charming. The old man has all kinds of interesting stories. Her husband was initially really hesitant to go over, but he kind of falls in love with the old couple. He really enjoys the man's stories, and they start eating together most nights. So she gives, the older lady gives Rosemary the pendant that the drug addict lady had been wearing. And it's apparently a good luck charm. The odd smell is from a plant called tannis root. Now, if you're wondering what the hell's tannis root, you're not alone. Tannis root isn't an actual plant. It's a fictional kind of mystical plant created specifically for this movie. So later on, Guy gets it. On the night that they plan to conceive, the older woman brings them individual cups of chocolate mousse. Rosemary finds hers has a strange chalky undertaste and throws it away after a few mouthfuls. Rosemary passes out, and we have this surreal dream in which a demon rapes her. You kind of have this strange thing. She's like on the bed a bed in the middle of the ocean. You have all the tenants of the apartment building standing around her watching as she gets raped by this this demonic creature. And as she's doing that, she gets raped by the demonic creature, and she wakes up to find scratches all over her body. Her husband Guy tells her that he had sex with her while she was unconscious because he didn't want to pass up the moment when she was fertile. Now, this is kind of an interesting moral question. In Canada, it's been ruled that you can't give consent for when you're unconscious. It's kind of an interesting moral question. I think in kind of a relationship with a healthy sex life, if couples want to have some fun waking each other up at night or in the morning, they're more than welcome to it. If someone's passed out in a drug stupor under kind of sketchy circumstances, it is pretty creepy that he's having sex with her comatose corpse. That's just me, though. Maybe I'm just a prude. I mean, if it was, like I said, if it's like normal sleep and he like wants to wake her up with a surprise, that's one thing. But if you're kind of in like a drug-induced coma, yeah. So Rosemary learns she's pregnant, and she plans to receive care from Dr. Hill, who is recommended to her by her best friend Elise. However, the people across the hallway insist that she sees their good friend, Dr. Abraham Saperstein, who said that the old woman will make Rosemary a daily drink that is more healthful than the usual vitamin pills. They say that Dr. Hill is a quack, probably because he's a goy, judging from his name. So he's a goyim, and Dr. Abraham Saperstein is he's one of the chosen. So he's definitely good at being a doctor. He's the most famous obstetrician in the city. He's also very famous and is on television a lot. So Rosemary starts to have kind of abdominal pain. She loses weight. She becomes pale. She starts eating raw meat and chicken liver. Dr. Saperstein insists the pain will subside soon and says she has nothing to worry about. She's eating these horrific vitamin drinks from the one across the hall. Dr. Hill had told her to take vitamins to help the baby grow healthy. But, yeah. So her friend Hutch takes note of Rosemary's gaunt appearance and hears of the mysterious tennis route. He does some research, but before he can tell Rosemary anything, he falls into a mysterious coma. Now, I'd just like to say something, because we're kind of moving along quickly. Kind of throughout the movie, it's kind of ambiguous. I mean, weird stuff is happening. The dream about the devil raping her is happening. The couple across the hall is pretty weird. The suicide's pretty weird. Kind of her pregnancy symptoms are really weird. At the same time, though, you have to go, well, how much of this, maybe she's having hormonal changes. A lot of women kind of go a bit crazy because of the hormones. Maybe she's mentally ill. Maybe she's just kind of paranoid. I don't think she's schizophrenic, but maybe just the stress of trying to conceive, having trouble with it, moving, people committing suicide and stuff is just screwing with her. So you aren't really sure, like, how much is this in Rosemary's head, how much of this is actually happening. And this is kind of the mystery element to the movie. And throughout the film, you can see Rosemary's mental health continue to degrade more and more. And you really, the line between reality and fiction starts to blur. So Rosemary meets one of her old friends who tells her to go see Dr. Hill. 3 months later, Hutch dies. He leaves Rosemary a book about witchcraft, and it's delivered along with a cryptic message that the name is an anagram. So she finds out the old man from across the hall, who is really a man who is the son of a former resident who is accused of being a Satanist who sacrificed children. So she suspects her neighbors and Dr. Saperstein are part of a cult with sinister designs for her baby, and that guy is cooperating with them in exchange for help in advancing his career. Thinking about it now, it's kind of funny. So you got the Goy actor, and you got Dr. Saperstein, and he's calling his Uncle Larry. He's calling Shlomo, his cousin Shlomo, and he's getting him into the acting business. So she goes and tries to talk to Dr. Hill. Dr. Hill understandably just thinks she's delusional and that she's kind of crazy just from her pregnancy. So Dr. Saperstein and Guy show up and tell her if she cooperates, neither she nor the baby will be harmed. So they sedate her. They try to bring her home. She briefly escapes them. She locks them out, but they enter the bedroom. She goes into labor and is sedated again by Dr. Saperstein. When she wakes up, though, she's told the baby has died. So we find out there's a secret door in a closet that leads to the apartment of the people across the hall. She finds out that the baby is alive. And this is kind of where the movie just goes batshit crazy for the last 10 minutes. And it's incredibly trippy. So she finds everyone in the that she's met throughout the movie are in the room. And they're gathered around her newborn son. Let's see here. So she looks at the baby and she finds the baby has horrific looking black eyes. To which Rosemary protests that the baby's eyes are nothing like that of Guy. It's then explained to Rosemary that Guy is actually not the child's real father. Like an episode of Demonic Maury Povich, the child named Adrian is actually the spawn of Satan. So Satan kind of came up from hell and raped her in her sleep, and she's given birth to the Antichrist. Kind of a bit like The Omen, but kind of a different spin on it. So it turns out that her husband Guy had come to the had said, okay, our first child will be given to Satan, but I'm going to have a successful acting career and we're going to become rich and powerful. The people then begin yelling, "Hail Satan, hail our Lord," and Rosemary says, "Oh God," and then one of the old couple yells, "God is dead," and they begin chanting Satan's name. So Rosemary spits in her husband's face, and she mentions God again, but the old woman stops them from mocking her and tells Rosemary she should be honored to be the lucky woman chosen to bear Satan's child. The old man urges her to be a mother to her son and assures her she does not have to join the cult if she does not want to. It's at this point that her mind completely snaps, and she picks up the baby and gently rocks his... She adjusts her son's blankets and gently rocks his cradle with a small smile on her face. So this is kind of a mixture of the two different types of horror. With regards to Rosemary, you just have this state of affairs where the world around her is completely corrupt and evil. It's through no fault of her home. There's no mea culpa, whatever it is. There's none of that. There's no kind of original sin she commits. There is an original sin, though. There's all these people who have reached out to Satan. Her husband has basically sold her soul and his soul in the firstborn child in exchange for wealth and power, which is frankly kind of horrifying, to be perfectly honest. And he, in doing that, he has kind of created the original sin that Rosemary has to pay for. With regards to Rosemary, like I said, she didn't do anything, so it's kind of, like I said, it's everyone around her is part of this cult. She's suddenly become trapped in this horrific universe. And the universe suddenly becomes so horrible and so overwhelming that for a lot of the movie you're really wondering, is Rosemary just imagining this? Is the world really this crazy? Is she insane? Is she hallucinating? What's going on? There's even kind of a twist on the whole redemption thing. Rosemary, instead of kind of redeeming herself before God, redeems herself before Satan. Another kind of moral question I always have in these is it moral to abort a baby or kill the newborn if we're pretty sure the child's the Antichrist? That would be an interesting one to ask a Catholic ethicist. So overall, I highly recommend watching Rosemary's Baby, even though I spoiled the movie for you. I hope I've kind of given you a bit of an idea as to kind of how I see the essence of horror and how this classic movie fits into it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I should have some more horror movies. Have fun.